Okay, make sure my audio is good. Check it out here. All right, and we're recording. Excellent. Okay, so this is the ship. I'll get more into this later, but for the sake of showing you the three frames you can choose from, we're gonna go to a relay, which is located. One of them is located on Mercury. Um, the concept of relays I'll also go over in another video. I'm just going to this relay to visit this place called the Simulacrum. It's basically an area where you can test different types of enemies with your warframes and weapons and things like that. Um, this video is dedicated to people trying to learn how to play Warframe. Uh, as time goes on, I will uh, get better at video editing. I've also taken liberty of taking all of my fancy-looking stuff off my Warframe, just so that you can see the base colors of the Warframe itself. So I'm gonna go with some regular leveled enemies here. This is way too high, just for the sake of go. Okay, I'm gonna make myself invincible and I'm gonna pause AI. It's counterintuitive. You guys will work. Do 5 of these guys. Okay. Now, the way Excalibur works is his first ability is slash dash. So basically, enemies in front of you in a cone, when you use that first ability, you'll jump between them, cutting them in half. It's a disgusting, awesome mix of beautiful awesomeness. The second ability, let me just get some more enemies here. Spawn them in. Emulate. Nope. I'm also doing some parkour here, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm just gonna jump around the walls. It's called Radio Blind, and you can blind enemies who are close to you. When they're blinded like this, they have the sparks kind of going off of them. You do finishers on them with your melee weapon. Depending on whether you're in the front or the back, will determine the type of finisher. So that's pretty awesome. Getting a little fancy with the parkour here. Okay. There we go. So, with his third ability, Radial Javelin, enemies within a certain area will get marked for a javelin and a slapping. That guy over there went flying. There he goes. They're all dead. They got hit by javelins. They're kind of pinned to the ground. Good ability for weak enemies, and it's good for stunning higher level enemies. And then we've got the Exalted Blade. Exalted Blade is fourth ability. It's a channeled kind of ability. If you look at the number on the bottom right, when I activate it, it'll start running down slowly because as long as it's out, as you can see here, it's kind of glowing awesome. There are different combos you can do with it, but just to show you, you slash like this, it cuts through enemies. This ability scales with melee mods you put on your melee weapon. I can go over that later in more greater detail. But for the sake of understanding, I've noticed I'm saying for the sake of a lot. When you put mods onto your actual melee weapon, in my case, this melee weapon right here, the Magistar, if I was to put some speed mods on there, maybe make my attack speed a little faster than this because it's kind of slow, right? Those mods will transfer over to Exalted Blade, which is really nice for when you want to attack faster. That's Excalibur for the most part. I guess his passive would be using more melee damage for swords. This is not a sword, this is a hammer type weapon, mace weapon. He's good for melee, you know, it's a good mix, especially with the slash dash and the radial blind. And that's Excalibur. Let's go on to the mag now. Yes. Okay. So we have mag. Pretty typical Warframe. I can get over into the effects of things later, the actual stats, but this is just kind of to explain the Warframe's abilities. Go ahead and simulate some enemies here. So Mag is actually a little smaller than most Warframes. She's kind of tiny. Walking up to even these guys, she's just kind of small. But with her first ability, she can pull enemies to the floor, and you can deal some damage to them as they're, you know, ready to take some hits. spawn in some more enemies here. Okay. I believe the next ability is the bolt attractor ability. Yes. So now enemies that are close enough will get sucked towards the center. And when I shoot near that bubble on the outside, or if I shoot somewhere near there, bullets will go towards the center. I can also pull enemies out of there if I wanted to get them out of the way. And that guy in the center who was originally targeted, the bubble will stay there until the timer runs out on the bottom near the abilities. He disappeared, but the bubble is also going to keep taking in damage towards the center as long as it exists. You can also spawn multiple of those. You can kind of hide in them if you really want to. You kind of got to be careful about it. Let me activate some AI here. And I'll make them a little stronger. So, see, 20. Okay, so they're going to start shooting at me now, but I'm going to go ahead and... Okay, so now, as you'll notice, they're shooting, but they're still shooting the guy inside the bubble there. They're getting stuck inside and shooting themselves. The bullets are coming back and hitting them. So really handy, good ability. If enemies are on the outside, kind of in those general areas shooting at you, you can kind of hide behind it. It makes for a good kind of protection. And if you're surrounded, you can kind of go inside as long as there's nothing shooting at you from behind. It won't, hit you. It directs towards the center. It's a nice ability to have. Now we can go on to the... can't remember what it's called. The third ability. Let's see. So when you turn on this ability, it sends out a wave of energy. And that wave you can see moving towards them strips them of their armor. Sometimes they'll die, like these guys are low enough so that they'll die, and the armor popping off of them will kill them. But generally, that will leave some armor on the floor, which I will now make strong enemies to show you an example of that. And, let's see here. Make them 40, I guess. I'll probably turn them on pause again, but there we go. So on the floor, there's little shiny things. I have a mod that makes it so that ability also makes their weapons freak out. Now I'm going to show off kind of... oh, I'm invincible. Why am I even bothering? Okay, yeah, so... I forgot about that part. Oh, for passive. All this stuff on the floor, when you bullet jump, it all kind of goes towards you, which is really nice. So yeah, all that stuff that was on the floor, all cleaned up. I can't pick it up because I'm full of everything, but... so if I was to use this ability here, send out that wave... I can use Crush to then pick up the enemies and crush them into little balls and send out those waves of armor that I picked up. So, those guys are done for. And I think that's it for Mag. That should be about it. Pause AI. Now we move on to Volt. Volt is a pretty cool Warframe, electricity based. I think his description talks about him having a decent amount of ability play versus gunplay, which is pretty handy. So, his first ability is called Shock, and when you use it, it chains to other enemies. They all kind of get shocked at the same time. Good for crowd control. You can shock the ground near enemies and they'll also get shocked. It won't be as strong, but it still shocks them, and you can shock someone else like directly, and it'll still chain, which is really nice. Pulling out the melee weapon I have here, which is a scythe thing. I'm going to turn on his second ability, which is speed. And you can run really fast with that when you turn that on, and you can attack people much faster than without speed on. Makes for good combos, really fast attacks. I also have a mod on here currently. I don't know if you can see if I turn it back on here. There's a ring of electricity around me so that if I get close enough it shocks enemies. Here, spawn those guys back in. I will use the third ability, which is his shield, and it's really a nice addition to his arsenal. Good for protection. This shield is pretty big. It's big enough to pick up or to protect a squad of people. When you shoot through it with your weapons, it increases your damage by a lot. You can also throw an electricity, or the first ability, through the shield, and if you'll notice the shield is a little bit more electrified now. If enemies try running through that, they'll get shocked and take damage, and you can put up multiple shields if you really wanted to, like this, and you can shock all of them, so you kind of create barriers of electricity. It also increases the amount of damage you do as you shoot people. Really handy ability. Oh, one more thing I forgot. They don't need enemies for this part. But when you put down your shield, you can also pick it up and use it as a riot shield with your secondary weapon. A little slower, but wherever you aim, the shield will follow, and it makes for a good. Let's put it down. Makes for a good way to transport or run in kind of tankier this frame. You can also turn on speed while carrying the ability. You go a little bit faster. But I think keep in mind when moving, I think energy is reduced by the distance you run, not necessarily the time you run with it. You can also throw shock through the shield as you're holding it and kind of cause this barrier to build up around you of electricity, which is cool. So you can run through people as you're slicing at them too, kind of shooting at them while this shield's in front of you with electricity going through it. If you look at the number in the top right, you can see that number building as I walk. I'll pause here next to my shields and health. If I run, it'll start building again. Now, if I stop and there's an enemy here, that 201 damage you see up there will also be applied to my gun as I fire it. So this is Volt, and I will take the liberty of showing you his fourth ability. Just work with a 5 for now. I'll wait for the speed to go down for a second, and alright, excellent. So towards the center here, I will activate this if my sentinel will stop being so aggressive. He charges up some power, sends out electricity, they start shocking each other like coils, and since there's no one else to shock him, he's just kind of become his own coil. But damage is done over time with the electricity, the coils kind of activate. Let me get some more enemies to kind of show how much more you can do with that. I'll get 20 of these guys. Okay. Work, get a little bit of energy here. They're off to the sides too, but I'll just go here. Get that wave out. Now they're all getting shocked. Those guys over there, I can probably reach them from here. Yep, there we go. And yep, that's here. Let's pull up that shield. Get up. Just electricity down and then run towards them. Survivors. Yeah, there we go. That's Volt. Those are the 3 Warframes to choose from at the very beginning. It's not the best video, per se, for showing off some abilities, but for the sake of showing off what they can do, this is what it is. This is what you got. I'll go into gameplay later, but for Warframes, that's what you got to choose from. I'll go over some maneuvers later, how to do certain things, how to, aim glide, things like that. Different damage type, bullets. I'll explain a lot more as we go along, but for now, this video is done. Hit the like button if you liked it, and post any questions in the comment section.